Has this ever been you? You're training hard, you're making gains, the weight's going up, you're feeling strong, and then out of nowhere, bang! You feel something pop in your chest. You're not too sure what it is, but the next set that you do hurts a whole lot right where you felt the zing. You, my good friend, just suffered an injury. And although it's going to be a temporary setback and you'll be back to lifting and using that same weight soon enough, what if I told you it could have been avoided? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Shane and I'm 11 weeks out from my first ever bodybuilding competition. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about injury prevention in your training. We're going to be talking about how you can help prevent injuries during your training, whether you're a bodybuilder, crossfitter, or you're training for a certain sport that you are competing in. I'm both a physical therapist as well as an athletic therapist, coming on 4 years of work experience, and trust me, I've seen some shit. But one thing that's common among all of them is that most of the time there was some sort of warning sign that if listened to may or may not have avoided that injury. So in this week's vlog, I'm going to be talking about the 3 things that I've applied to my training and that has worked for many of the clients that I work with in order to prevent injuries as you're training throughout the year. Because I truly believe that if you have the least amount of hurdles in front of you and the least amount of setbacks, you're going to be the most likely to succeed in your goals and to reach the fitness goal that you've set out for yourself. If you want to skip ahead to that talk, I'll put the timestamp right here. You can head there on the video and get started right away. Otherwise, you and I are going to be heading to do a push workout at Atlantis Gym. None other than, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be a banger. New workout, never been seen on the channel. So let's prep the pre-workout and head over there right now. See you in a second. We're about to head into the gym, into Atlantis. What we have on schedule is a push day. And later on in this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about the 3 best methods that I've used to prevent injuries in the gym and outside the gym. Not just as someone who trains a lot, but as a physical therapist and an athletic therapist. Trust me when I say there's a lot of injuries that can be prevented, and most of the time it just takes a little bit of self-awareness and reflection. Push day, we got chest, delts, and a little bit of triceps. We're going to have a good time. See you guys in there. Let's get it.
Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh Lord, yeah. Politicians hide themselves away. this world stops turning, ashes where the body's burning. No more war pigs have the power, and as God has struck the hour, day of judgment God is calling. Underneath the war pigs crawling, begging mercies for the sins. Satan laughing spreads his wings. Oh Lord, yeah.
So this week I gotta figure out what my posing routine is gonna be, or which, 5 or 6 poses I'm going to showcase for my walkout when they call my name at the show, which is about 30 to 45 seconds at the competition I'm gonna do. So figured I would run through some of my favorite poses that I think are gonna look best. I'll kind of number them off and love to hear what you guys think would be the best poses for me to put together in a routine. So maybe pick your top 3 or 4 and let's run through them. Here we go. Front relaxed is obligatory. Not sure which other ones would be cool to do. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. I'll try them out, but let's hear in the comments which ones you think I should go with. Pick the top 3 or 4. Things are changing though. It's looking badass. Post-workout in the car. 50 grams protein, 50 grams carbohydrates in our shake. Slam this on the way home. I have a physio treatment to give in about 22 minutes, and it's a 15-minute drive to get home, so not gonna chat too much. Gonna head over there, drink this on the way, treat, and then it's gonna be breakfast. I'll see you guys in the next shot where we give our talk on injury prevention while you're training for bodybuilding, CrossFit, powerlifting, whatever the case may be, or even training for a sport to compete in. Talk to you guys in a second. So we just finished up with the physiotherapy treatment. I was treating an athlete who's heading to the track and field national championships this week. So super exciting, fun person to work with. It was a good time. And I thought I'd do a bit of a check-in to let you guys know how I'm feeling, what my thoughts are, and overall just how this week went. So we implemented the change where I was going to be doing 25 minutes of Stairmaster instead of 20 minutes of Stairmaster on 5 trainings of the week instead of 4 trainings. So cardio duration went up a little bit, and 1 more day of doing cardio post-workout. And I'm also doing fasted cardio just every single morning except Fridays because I wake up at like 4:30 a.m. to head to the gym since I work at 8 a.m. those mornings. But all in all, I'm seeing a very, very steady and slow decrease in the body fat. You probably saw in the post-workout posing clips that we just posted where I'm starting to just get like that little bit of extra definition from video to video to video. If you haven't been keeping track with those, do go back and watch the old videos from 13 weeks out or 12 weeks out and you'll see a bit of a difference. But otherwise, yeah, this week I registered officially for IDFA 156, which is the International Drug-Free Athletics Association. And it's their 156th show. They do shows in Ottawa and Montreal, and they also do online bodybuilding competitions. And I went to go watch IDFA 154 a few months ago and just was such a cool experience. I talked about that in a different vlog early on. And then Sean Campbell, the organizer, has been super nice to me. He's been super encouraging, and he's always posting stuff online, which is really, really good and informative as a natural bodybuilder who's looking to do his first competition. Anyway, so we registered finally for the competition. So my name is officially on that list. And we also look to organize our tanning session for the day before / morning of the competition because it's going to be done in 2 coats. It was, to be honest, more expensive than I thought it was going to be. You know, bodybuilding is definitely not a cheap sport. I would definitely say that it is a privileged sport. You know, like you have to be in a position where you can have a good amount of disposable income in terms of all the supplements and food that you got to buy, paying a coach to create your training programs to track you, competing, traveling to compete if you need to do that, buying posing trunks, paying for your spray tans, all that stuff. It all kind of adds up, and it's a lot of, you know, monthly expenses that kind of start to culminate at some point. But it's done. We're officially heading over there for October 19th, and I'm feeling very good. We haven't dropped the calories yet, so I'm still pretty happy day to day, but I am feeling it at work where my energy levels just overall do take quite a dip in the second half of my shift. You know, I treat 1 hour at a time per person, so I'll see maybe between 7 to 8 people in a day, back to back, with a half-hour break in the middle. And it's tough, you know, you're actively listening as a physiotherapist, you're trying to come up with solutions, you're trying to have some level of conversation with your clients so that, you know, they can either learn something or at least have a bit of an engaging 1 hour session. Yeah, my only fear is that as we get closer and closer to that competition, and my calories get low, I don't know how I'm going to do with the secondhand effects of being low on calories. I don't know if I'm going to have brain fog or if I'm just going to have, like, you know, chronic fatigue, but I'm not thinking or worrying about it too much now. I'll just kind of see what happens, and whatever happens, I'll deal with it as it comes. And this morning I weighed in at 145.6 pounds. Yeah, not super heavy, to be honest. I'm about 5'6", right? So I'm not going to necessarily have an insane amount of muscle on my frame, and as a natural athlete, like, you're just not gonna be able to pack on as much muscle as someone who's on gear. The 145 is where I'm at the moment. I'd probably guesstimate I'm at around 8 to 9% body fat, so I think I'm gonna end up weighing somewhere along like the high 130s or the mid 130s when I'm on stage. which, you know, if I look big, that's all that really matters, right? So it's a bit of an update on the competition, where I'm at, how I'm feeling, and let's swap to today's topic on the video, which is injury prevention. All right, so let's talk about injury prevention. Maybe you skipped ahead from the intro, or maybe you actually just watched the push day and learned a little bit about the posing routine that we have cooking up. Anyway, let's get into the 3 things that'll help you prevent injury. And again, this is coming from my clinical experience as a physical therapist, as well as an athletic therapist, and then meshing in a little bit of just the research I've done over the years, online, reading studies, and my personal experience as a lifter who's been training for about 13 years now. Not just for bodybuilding, but I also did track and field. I trained for basketball to learn plyo, trained for MMA, and then also trained for just general athleticism. So the first topic is accumulated fatigue versus recovery. To put it simply, it is the idea that you can only train as hard as you can recover. So many of the times that I'm getting people in the clinic who tear a muscle doing a sport or training in a gym, but when you start asking some questions, come to find out that this individual more than likely was having a lot of training, let's say 4+ days of the week, for sessions that were definitely a bit longer, let's say 45 minutes upwards towards 4 or 5 hours, if you're working with gymnasts, for example. And then you ask them about something like how many hours they sleep, or just generally what kind of food that they're having around the training or to help recover from the training. And that's where a lot of people get into a bit of a pitfall. If you are training really hard and you're training often, and you're not recovering enough to get back to each workout at near 100% or at 100%, that will eventually lead to your body being less and less and less readily available to tackle that training, even if you're putting yourself through the same weights, through the same sets, through the same reps as you did the week before. And it could be something as simple as sleeping 6 hours a night instead of 7 to 8 hours a night as an adult. Or even what we see in some cases, people may not be eating enough food to actually recover and provide their body with the calories to rebuild that muscle and replenish the glycogen needed to train hard. So if you're not recovering enough from your actual trainings, you're going to be going to every workout with technically a bit of a higher likelihood for something to go awry, because that muscle that you're training is not as ready as it could be to tackle that training. And if you feel like as the weeks go on that you're adhering to a training program, you're just feeling more and more and more sluggish in the gym, you want to take a bit of a step back and just analyze, okay, how many hours of true sleep am I getting per night? Am I on a screen right up until the time that I'm going to bed? What's my nutrition looking like, before I train, while I'm training, after I train? What about the rest of the day? Am I drinking alcohol on weekends? Alcohol is going to affect your sleep, decrease the quality. Blue lights from your screens will decrease how deep of a sleep state you can go into. And so these are all factors that are going to need to be taken into account, and things that, when you optimize it, will actually reduce your likelihood of getting injured. Second concept that we're going to talk about, and this is extremely important for me, is to prioritize form over ego. And what I mean by this is that I've been there before. I'm doing something like an inclined dumbbell press, and I told myself in my head, I'm going to hit 12. But once I'm going with my good form and I get to 9 or 10 reps, I know that I've hit muscular failure. I can feel that I'm probably not going to get another rep. But in my brain, I've decided arbitrarily I have to get 12 reps. And so I grind through that 12th rep, and it just looks gnarly. You see it all the time in gyms, especially with people who are a little bit less experienced as lifters. They're gonna start, kicking their legs out, arching their back. They're gonna start caving in at the chest in order to press. And trust me, the second that your form is compromised, that is the moment that an injury is going to happen. Because think about it, you're sacrificing the form that you're in, which is using the muscle that you're trying to target. For example, you got your chest up, and that's your shoulder blades are pinched together so that you can train your chest. And then now you're starting to cave here so that you can press through the shoulders, and all the strain is going to be on the delt, the rotator cuff, triceps. Those are smaller muscles. If you're using a heavy load, even 185 or more, I'm just picking a number randomly, but you get what I mean. Then that's just a bunch of load that tissue may not be ready for. It may already be fatigued, and that likelihood of a muscle strain or your tendons getting some sort of damage just goes up a whole bunch. Remember, if you're training to get a specific muscle stronger or to build muscle in a specific area, sacrificing your form just to get to that number that's in your head, it's not going to get you more muscle in the end. If anything, it's going to be more of a setback, because you're going to get a flare up, you're going to develop some sort of tendinitis, and it's just not cool. So really prioritize good form, perform an exercise with perfect form before you start loading it more and more and more. And my general advice is to take a weight that you can do 10 reps with, and then keep training that weight until you can do 11 reps, 12 reps, even up to 15 reps comfortably. But usually when I can hit 12 reps at a weight, I'll increase by, I'm just gonna say 5 pounds, and I'll start at 8 reps in that set. And then the next week 9 reps, then the next week 10 reps. That way you're always increasing incrementally, and your form is never gonna have to take such a big hit because you're doing this massive jump in weight. Third and final tip to avoid injuries as a lifter. It's gonna sound cliche, giving you a warning, but it is to actually take your warm-up seriously. I can't tell you how many people come into the gym in their 40s or 50s who have suffered, you know, a pec tear, or they strained something in their quad, or they pulled their hamstring. You ask them about, okay, like what's your warm-up look like at the gym when you're gonna train chest or when you're gonna train legs, and they say, oh, you know, I just lie down on the bench and I do just the bar, and then I put a plate, and then I put a plate 25, and then 2 plates. And it's like, okay, that's great for training the actual form and movement, but you know, how prepared are your shoulders? How prepared is your rotator cuff? Are your triceps warmed up? Is your pec kind of ready to fire at the most that it can in that state? And believe me, there's not many cases where doing the warm-up will actually make your lift worse. I'd be like, right off the top of my head, I can't really think of any. And come to think of it, there's quite a few injuries that I've seen where people say, you know what? This injury happened the day that I got to the gym and I was in a rush, so I skipped my warm-up, or I went through only a couple of warm-up movements rather than the usual ones that I do, and then on my first set, boom, something happened. And don't get me wrong, I know what it's like to be 16 or 18 or 20 years old and you can just jump onto a bench or get under a bar and squat a bunch of weight without a warm-up and you feel fine. But as a natural bodybuilder, if you want to be doing this for life, if you want to be in the best position possible and you want to minimize that risk of injury, it is always worth doing a generalized warm-up, which will target, lengthen slightly, but also most importantly, activate the groups of muscles that you're about to train. For example, if you're going to be doing deadlifts on a day, you know that you're going to be using some quads, glutes for sure, hamstrings for sure, and your lower back. Dude, go in there and do some bodyweight RDLs, do some, mobility work for your lower back, do some core work and core activation for that lower back and then the deep core over here before you start lifting up the bar. Trust me, you're gonna feel so much better for it, and I can attest to it too. This past year, since I've been training to do a bodybuilding show, I've incorporated a pretty thorough warm-up that takes me about 10 minutes when I get to the gym. And like, I have 0 joint pain, 0 back pain, no pain in my knees or hips. Life is great and it's made a massive difference. So take the warm-up seriously and you won't regret it. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Are there things that you believe have helped you as someone who trains to just reduce your likelihood of getting injured? Is that maybe that's journaling how you feel on a training day, maybe that's doing a bit of self-awareness work as you're doing a lift, or maybe it's backing off of a certain lift the second that you might feel something feels a bit wonky. Whatever it might be, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to know. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope that you got to get a little bit of insight from a sports physical therapist on how you can prevent some of those injuries in the future. And you know what, maybe if it just gets you to start asking yourself some questions, then I'm happy with the result and my job is done as far as how I can help you guys continue to train hard and continue to push towards your goals with the least amount of hindrances and barriers and bumps in the road possible. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, please do give me a like. I appreciate all the support that you guys can give me. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep following along. Like I said, we are 11 weeks out from our competition. Things are getting pretty serious and we're feeling good so far. We're gonna keep on keeping on, and I'll see you guys in next week's video. Peace out, bye.